Hello, and welcome to How to Be Orange, the audiobook experience. I enjoyed writing the book, I certainly enjoyed reading it, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. Go to youtube.com/Greg Shapiro and subscribe to my channel, and then you can click on the playlist. Enjoy. How to Be Orange, Chapter 3, Dutch Culture for Dummies. The quote: Dutch people are even progressive in their racism. Right now, Dutch people hate Moroccan people and blame them for all the problems. And 10 years before that, it was people from Suriname. And 10 years before that, it was the Indonesians. What a great idea for the rest of the world! To change the race everybody hates every few years. Tom Rhodes, comedian. If you fly to the Netherlands on KLM and read about the Dutch in the Holland Herald, you may not realize that Holland is not the name of the country. You may be similarly confused by the Dutch Foreign Ministry, their Holland logo, or the viral ad campaign, Holland, the Original Cool. In fact, there are 12 provinces here, and 10 don't have Holland in the title. This gets pointed out within about 1.5 seconds whenever you say hello Holland in, say, Brabant. It's understandable that most Dutch don't want to be called Holland. Hol translates to hollow, and while Americans can be shallow, at least we're not hollow. The name Holland also seems confusing to certain Dutch people. For example, the Dutch national football team. Every 2 years, the stadiums are full of orange fans yelling, Holland, Holland, but that only refers to 2 provinces, Noord-Holland and Zuid-Holland. What about the players from the other 10 provinces? What if they pass the ball to the guy from Friesland? He must be thinking, I'm not from Holland, and he misses. It must be so frustrating they feel like kicking some Spanish player in the chest. Now, in the assimilation course, we also got to learn the Dutch national anthem, Het Wilhelmus. It starts, Wilhelmus van Nassau ben ik van Duitse bloed. I was the one in class raising my hand after the first line. I said, look, I'm translating on the fly here, but is the opening line of your national anthem, I'm William, founder of your country, and by the way, I'm German? And then came my follow-up question, are there any other countries that start their national anthem by name-checking another country? Not that we could think of. Can you imagine if America would do that? Oh, say, can you see our British history? And Canada is okay, and a shout out to Mexico. No, you wouldn't do that. It's your national anthem. But the Dutch have no problem going through the whole first stanza and not mentioning the name of their country at all. And it gets weirder. At the end of the first part that everybody sings for the national anthem, you hear about the King of Spain. Yeah, my allegiance for all time, I pledge to the King of Spain. Now, the anthem starts out by naming 2 other countries, Germany and Spain. And these are not just any 2 countries. As we learn in the assimilation course, these are countries that have historically invaded and occupied the Netherlands. Hence the question, what kind of self-hating checklist is this for a national anthem? Can you imagine America singing, oh, say, can you see, Vietnam was a mistake, and Iraq was unjustified. There were no weapons of mass destruction. And no wonder the Netherlands don't do very well in the World Cup. How do they start off every international match? They sing Wilhelmus van Nassau just when they should be trying to psych themselves up. Instead, they're thinking, yes, we're going to win today. We're going to be number 1. Unless we're playing Germany or Spain. They lost to Germany in 1974. They lost to Spain in 2010. Is it just a coincidence? I love Dutch culture. I love the Dutch language, but you people deserve a better national anthem. The Dutch Olympic team also seems affected by this odd Dutch anthem. Now, personally, I quite enjoyed the Dutch men's gymnastics champion Epke Zonderland. I happened to be watching the 2012 Olympic Games with some people from the US and the UK. And as there were no Dutch people around, I was happy to represent Nederland. After Epke Zonderland won the gold medal, they asked me, wow, Zonderland, what does that mean? And I told them, well, Zonder means without, and land is land. So, Mr. Zonderland accepted the award for Nederland, but his name was saying, I'm not with them. As an American, I am technically allochtoon. So are my kids. Then again, I realized the term allochtoon wasn't invented for people like me because we're Western, and I'm writing this in English. In fact, my third-generation Moroccan neighbor speaks better Dutch than I do, but she gets called allochtoon, and I don't. What are we really getting at? As I understand it, allochtoon is a word Dutch people just made up, so that if you can't pronounce it correctly, they know you're probably not from around here. I was introduced to the term allochtoon by a Dutch person who explained, well, yeah, it's the opposite of autochtoon. What's autochtoon? And why would you choose to call yourself that? Well, autochtoon is someone born in the Netherlands. So it's like America, and the way we use the word foreigner, as in, I don't trust them dang foreigners. Allochtoon is a word that stays with you. If you're allochtoon, you can learn the language, assimilate, and even marry a Dutch person. And then, after you have kids, they'll still be allochtoon. But their kids will still be labeled allochtoon. But after the fourth generation, well, maybe then they can be Dutch. For a country based on tolerance and individual freedom, it's odd the way the Dutch love pointing out people who are different. The Amsterdam City Council has now placed a ban on the term allochtoon in official business. According to the Amsterdam Integration Chairwoman André van Es, Amsterdam will no longer be using the term allochtoon. We are all Amsterdammers, and from now on, we will talk about Moroccan Amsterdammers or Turkish Amsterdammers. This is not the first time that the Dutch have tried to replace the term allochtoon. Last time they tried Nieuwe Nederlander, new Dutch person. It didn't catch on. Why? If you ask me, too many syllables. Now, Amsterdam wants to change the term to something largely unpronounceable, which will probably result in everyone still saying allochtoon. Why not just call people what they call themselves? In Amsterdam, I've heard Dutch Moroccans call themselves mokro's. I've even heard Dutch Turks call themselves Turks. And if Dutch people call me a Yank, I won't be offended. In fact, legend has it that Yankees comes from the term Jan Kees. So I guess I'm half Dutch already. The Inburgeringscursus is an assimilation course designed to teach things about Dutch culture that most Dutch people don't know. This assimilation course is very informative. Soon I was learning how to play Stump the Dutchie. Why was the Treaty of Westphalia so important to the Dutch? My wife wasn't sure. Who was Johan Thorbecke? Most Dutch people near Rembrandtplein think he's the patron saint of acute alcohol poisoning. And what's the most densely populated country in Europe? It's not Nederland. I was the only tall white male in my assimilation class. I was surrounded by people from Turkey, Morocco, from Africa, Russia, Poland, and Romania. They were, according to a friend of mine, a United Nations of countries the Dutch don't want here. One of the biggest lessons I learned in the assimilation course wasn't about Dutch culture, it was about the other cultures. Every week we'd find a partner and talk in Dutch about where we were from, and I learned that the women in headscarves from Turkey had been to university in Istanbul, and they came over here together to look for work or to further their studies. I learned that the guy from Africa wanted to study water engineering here and return home to teach. I learned that the Moroccan women wanted to start up a club for other Moroccan women to get out of the house and do fitness together. Most of them had already heard about the Dutch history of tolerance and immigration. In fact, that's why many of us moved here. Our instructor was teaching us about the all-important Western values such as the freedom of religion, and that's when we learned that the headscarf is a symbol of oppression. We learned this while I was sitting next to 6 different women in headscarves. Awkward. One of the women raised her hand and said, "Excuse, please, but so you know, where I am growing up in Turkey, it was a very secular society. No religion in public. Government rules were very strict. No headscarf allowed. So for me to move to the Netherlands and wear my headscarf, for me, it is a symbol of liberation." And the instructor responded, nee, dat is fout. Sorry, but that's incorrect. In this class, if they ask you in the exam, just say it's a symbol of oppression. The most difficult part of the assimilation course was that I was being introduced to 2 different cultures at the same time, the Dutch culture of the textbooks and the everyday Dutch culture I was seeing on TV. In the textbooks, they'd say, "Tolerance is the foundation of Dutch identity." On television, "Election results favor the right wing. It's the death of tolerance." In the textbook, "Nederland is a country built on consensus and the Polder model." TV, "Polder agreement rejected. The Polder model is history." In the textbook, "Immigration has contributed to a rich and dynamic Dutch society." On TV, "Full is full." I was left to wonder, how do you teach about the Dutch identity when the Dutch are having an identity crisis?